How have you been?
It's okay. Yeah, but I still have a lot of responsibility here.
Hmm.
Let's stay here. Okay, so I think we finished number three, right? Base. Yeah, that's okay. We can read now. The realizations that the basic Buddhi is profound and equal to the Buddha enlightenment is called the dedication to equality for Buddha. It's been, yeah. So Buddhas attend to that Buddhi or enlightened nature, right? It's common sense, right? Mm. Okay. Four, please. Yeah, can you do number
Go
four?
ahead. Okay. A manifestation of the pure mind ground, which is identical to the state of a Buddha, is called dedication to omnipresence. So the pure mind ground is the mind when it's not defiled by upside down thinking. It's the mind when its function is in alignment with the Buddha nature. It's like the mind that's not defiled by ignorance. Um, and that would be the pure mind ground.
Mm.
And that that mind in its essence is this the same mind ground of all Buddhas. Um, yeah. And why they call it the dedication to omnipresence? Well, it maybe it's the Buddha is everywhere, um, and the manifestation of the pure mind ground that's identical to the state of a Buddha.
Mm.
Yeah, does the pure mind ground involve omnipresence? I mean, the Dharma body is omnipresent, right? It's everywhere all at the same time. But I'm not sure that I can connect the pure mind ground to omnipresence.
You know what's my omnipresent?
Isn't that every like being present everywhere at the same time?
Let me move out here. It's just different from omniscience. Yeah, the state of being widespread or constantly encounter. So, so the
Hmm.
um,
So maybe someone who's purified the mind ground then sees the Buddha everywhere.
yeah, you see the difference between omnipresent and omniscience.
So omniscience, I think, is all knowing.
Mm-hmm. Omniscient, all known, and the omnipresent is always present, right? Present everywhere, right?
Hmm.
Mm. Mm. I used to ask my student the difference between the Buddha omniscience toward the God omniscient. Then, you see the difference?
Well, yeah, I definitely I see the difference, and a lot of the principles discussed in Buddhism aren't included in Christianity, clearly. So it does seem like the meaning of omniscience in Christianity for God would be different, but there'd be a lot of overlap as well.
Mhm.
It's just, I think the Christian view of like the idea of how things really are is different than the Buddhist worldview of how things really are. Like, the influence of consciousness and karma is really clearly delineated in Buddhism, in more kind of subtle laws as well. So it seems like there's some elements of the Buddha's omniscience that wouldn't be considered in Christianity, like past lives. So the Buddha can see the past lives of somebody, but they don't. There's not a concept of past lives, so they never talk about God seeing someone's past lives.
Mm. In Christianity, Catholicism, or even most of the Western tradition, they don't talk much about how God could recognize the past life, right? Because they don't believe in past life, right?
Yeah, it's pretty rare that I find a Christian who does. It's not the common belief.
So because they based on here, they were created by God. That's why they're here, right? And after they done this is like they just want to unite with God. That's all they need to do, right?
Hmm.
We talk about past life or because mm, God created them, no question asked, right? Mm. But you read some Buddhist character tale story, right? Have
Hmm.
all kind of stories that relate to how he sacrificed his life for others. Mm. So to be Buddha, they need to work hard, to cultivate hard. That's quite different from other tradition that they don't need to work. They just believe and they be safe. That's quite different. It's quite opposite. Mm. Yeah, but
Hmm.
wow. Yeah, they say here omnipotent, omniscience, omnipresent God. Do you think the Buddha has this type of power? Or
Yeah, that is the typical description. Like that matches the Buddha as well. I mean, understanding all phenomena, understanding the true essence of all phenomena, being able to look into the past without uh, limit, to be able to know the future, and the workings of all things. So definitely omniscient. And the Dharma body doesn't exclude anything. So the Dharma body's omnipresent. And then omnipotent, yeah, like the power of the Buddha is, I wonder, I think there may be a little distinction in how Christians think about omnipotent with respect to God and how Buddhists we think about it with respect to the Buddha. Because with respect to God, the idea of omnipotence is like, all right, God could do anything he wanted. If he wanted, for all of a sudden a little weird creature to appear on my desk in this instant out of thin air. The idea is that, God could make a weird little creature appear in the desk out of thin air. Or like there would really be no limits in that sense. And the Buddha's only going to use that power for compassionate ends. So
mm,
it can't be for punishment. It can't be for liking one person more than another person. But the Buddha is driven by compassion. And the Buddha's power is tremendous, is unimaginable. But it's not like we would ever think of like the Buddha just choosing to exercise the Buddha's will for some arbitrary reason.
mm,
I mean, the prayers have power when when people pray to the Buddha. So the Buddha's influence and ability to help people in the way, maybe not that they expect, but the way that serves them in practicing the way. Um, and it's just it seems like there's an acknowledgement that the Buddha can't control all things. Like the Buddha can't just make it so that everybody is enlightened right now. Like, or I imagine the Buddha would. It seems that that's like part of the universal law. Like living beings have to step through the door themselves. They have to do the work. So while it's within the Buddha's power in some sense to like save living beings, the living beings have to also work for it. Like otherwise, nobody would need to practice to go to the Pure Land. People would just, when they died, a Buddha would come along and say, "Hey, you want to go to the Pure Land? All right, let's go." Like, it seems that the Buddhas wouldn't teach us to practice if it wasn't necessary. Like, it wasn't necessary to develop virtues in order to become established in Buddhahood. So I think the omnipotence idea, that's where there's the biggest difference.
Mm-hmm. In most of the Western tradition, they focus only the faith, right? You don't need to practice anything, right? You just need to have the faith. God will save you. That's all, right? But in Buddhism, in order to go to Buddha land, you have to practice. You have to call his name. Besides, have
Yeah. The rules, we both have the rules. They have the Ten Commandments that are similar to some of the 10 good deeds or the 10 precepts. But yeah, practice-wise, prayer, right? The practice of prayer, of gratitude, of forgiveness. So there are some things that they get reminded of regularly in church that have some similarity, but it's not as essential. It's much more common for people to not be as sincere, I think, because people just are born into it. They don't always choose it consciously.
that's
Uh,
why mm, uh, they scare people, right? They not encourage that, but they enforce people to go to the church every Sunday to reinforce that kind of faith. But without that kind of reinforcement, they lost the faith. If they lost the faith, they lost everything. But in Buddhism, there's no need to have the kind of reinforcement because beside the faith, everyone needs to put in practice by themselves, right? Mm.
mm,
And one thing is that uh, in both tradition, Mahayana and Theravada tradition, they mentioned about how Buddha flew to the sky to stop the two groups of people who were going to kill each other because of the water. You know that story, right? When there was a famine, and so there's no not enough water, so people on both sides of the bank, so they try to reverse the creek or the river into their territories, and they almost kill each other because of those type of fighting from water. You know that story?
I don't think so. I thought maybe I did, but no, it doesn't sound familiar.
You know that. Let me type for you here. Yeah. Um, Miracle. Here, one of the miracle here that talk about uh right here when two groups, yeah, golden goal. Uh, okay, first the twin miracle. Oh yeah. So when he turned to his kingdom, and most of his relative didn't believe in him, so that's why he flew up to the air and performed the twins miracle. You know what mean twin miracle?
Um, the would be two miracles, but
And
I'm not
um,
only generally do what I know what it means.
at the bottom, he emit the water. The top, he emit the fire.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and also to medical one more time. So here, actually, that another one here. Uh, okay, levitation, levitating over the Rohini River. So these two groups, let's see that two kindle, two group people, they fight for water. See that, and they almost kill each other, right? In opposite side of the river. So he just flew up to the sky so that they could pay attention on him instead of fighting. And after that, then he asked him to stop, right? To fight. That's why yeah, he asked the rulers whether the water or human life is more valuable. So that's why they listen to him. So my point is that yeah, it's the core both Buddhist tradition. So whether it's levitation between miracles or so forth, or the back of your image, Buddha went down from the heaven. So during his lifetime, he performed a lot of this type of miracles. So um uh, yeah, like you say that the Buddha has the power to bring the people to the Pure Land, right? He has all kind of power to bring them there, but he doesn't want to. Why is that?
Well, it would seem that one's mind would have to be purified to a certain extent to be able to um, be at peace in the Pure Land. Because if someone was still really greedy or had a lot of, just a lot of desire or anger, they wouldn't be able to be harmonious with the other beings in the Pure Land. And then it wouldn't, if it was filled up with people like that, greedy, angry, desirous people, ignorant people, then it wouldn't be a Pure Land anymore. So I think people have to reach a certain minimum of like peacefulness and gentleness and kindness and compassion in order for the Buddhas to help the rest of the way.
Hmm. Okay, that's a big question. Yeah, so this is page Huy Năng, right? So he say that people in the East, that's mean we, desire Amida Buddha name so that they can be born in the Western Pure Land, right? So what happens if the people in the West and the Buddha Pure Land uh, do they need to decide the Buddha name so that they can come back to the Eastern? Yeah.
Maybe some of them, right? Maybe at some point they're ready for a bigger challenge.
No, it's tricky. It's tricky in the sense that we know that will be born in the Western Pure Land only the one that have a pure mind, sincere mind, right? No
Mm,
more post thinking, right? So that's why when they were there, there's no way for them to be back here unless they become Buddha and unless they follow with the power to rescue sentient beings here.
mhm.
So that's why that's like you say that yeah, even if the Buddha have the power to bring us to the Pure Land, and like you say, even we were there, but what happened if we still have anger, we still have jealousy, we still have a craving, and we see all types of gold, all type of luxury life there. We so enjoy with that. We get stuck with that then because we have not purified our mind yet. Because in the sense that we're not qualified to be there mentally and spiritually, right?
Mhm.
Like for elementary student, there's no way for them to be qualified to go to college unless they acquire some special skill, special knowledge, mm, that go beyond um, their levels of thinking, right? It's very rare.
Hmm.
Uh, and of course, on the top that um, uh, somehow in Buddhism, everything based on the law of karma. So when we do some type of karma, we have to pay for them. But of course, only the way that uh, only when we want to go to the Western Pure Land Amitabha and we carry all past karma to the West. Is that fair? Is that fair with the karma for other people? What do you think?
Mm. Well, yeah, if everyone was carrying heavy karma, then
Mhm.
it would be hard for it to be a pure land because you'd have all this karmic retribution happening.
But I mean that in the Western Pure Land tradition, they say that whenever we recite Buddha name, Amitabha Buddha names sincerely, and when we were rescued by him to the Western Pure Land, oh, he will bring all our bad stuff or our bad karma over there too. So is, is that is that fair for others?
Oh, is that fair for others? He'll bring all of our, so we see, yeah, okay, so we don't escape from the karma that we have when we go there. But maybe, I mean, the power of the Buddha, I imagine, could help orchestrate the return of the karma, like guide the return, the karmic retribution in a way that was um, more tolerable.
Mm.
That's what I would imagine have to be the case. And then,
Yeah,
like being fair to the other people who are there, I think it'd be fair to the people who are there because also they would have the same situation. You know, they would have received the same blessing.
yeah. I used to tell the Buddhists the analogy that, let's say if they were best swimmer, right? So if they were uh, dropped down in the ocean, yes, they can survive. Probably, let's say, a week, right, on the ocean.
That'd be pretty impressive if they could live for a week. Yeah.
If they were best swimmer, that's a max they can survive without rely upon anything else on the ocean, right? But even we don't know how to swim, we can use the boat. We can ride on the boat, the ship, from one ocean, one bank, one beach of ocean to another beach of ocean, from like the Pacific Ocean from Vietnam to California, or wherever we want to go. With the big ship, they can ship us. So the big ship is symbolize Buddha power. So the thing they want to bring up is that similar as the uh, omniscience of God that could bring the believers, the faithful to their own heaven, and the Amitabha Buddha is work the same way as that whoever recite his name sincerely, he would take everything for them to Buddha land. Is that similar? Is that what do you think?
I think there are similarities because there's the mantra recitation of the name of Amitabha is very similar to, say, prayer, especially the rosary practice, where it's either the Our Father or it's the Hail Mary, and there's an idea of needing to live a good life, like following certain rules that help prevent someone from hurting other people. So there's that similarity as well. And then that the after death, the person going to that realm in Christianity heaven and the Pure Land, the Pure Land, that also would be because of the power of in Buddhism's case, the Amitabha Buddha, in Christianity's case, God, that it's just through God's forgiveness and God's power that it happens for them. Um, and so much it's like because of Amitabha's great compassion and his great vows, that's why this Pure Land is set up and why people can go there. So I think looking at it like bird's eye view mechanistically, there's a lot of similar concepts,
Mm.
but still distinct distinct as well. I think the impression most Pure Land practitioners get is a much higher level of personal responsibility for their success. I think in Christian traditions in general, the feeling of the importance of the personal responsibility in action is not as strong, but still there.
But yeah, most of the time they rely upon their God completely, right? Because they say they don't have any power except God. But in Buddhism, they say that there's a majority primarily on the mm, individual cultivation, right? If we practice sincerely, the Buddha will come. If not, he would not come. So we have to put our effort, to gain the rebirth to the Buddha land, not by chance, not by prayer alone, not by having the faith alone. We need to do the chanting. Um, anyway, so yeah, big difference. So and also the purpose of going to the Pure Land is to become a next Buddha, not to serve him. But in the Christianity, say that well, you can go there and live with the God forever, and that's all. And they don't say anything more. Mm.
Mhm.
I used to ask my student if you have a chance to make up your test, or if you take a test only one times, which one you like? Definitely, people like to take multiple chance for the test, right? If they fail, they can do again. Fail, they could do again until they pass. But if they have only one chance, that's all for them. That's one try. There's one flow. That's all. Mm.
Mhm.
Depend upon how we see. But what do you think about those couple of Buddha miracle here? That's beyond the human thinking. For the common, let's say you talk with non-Buddhist, American non-Buddhist people that don't know anything about Buddhism, and you talk about miracle of the Buddha, you think they recognize us? Most of them they recognize us, or they may think that's just the fake information. What do you think?
I think most people have no idea the full list of the miracles of the Buddha or even a partial list. I haven't looked through, I'm not familiar with the whole list. I'm just familiar with some of them. And none of these are really the ones as you were going through them, the ones I already know and the additional ones there. None of them are beyond the some of the like I think the Christian idea of miracles. So if they I don't think it should be a conceptual hurdle for people if those sorts of miracles are possible if they believe in Christianity because they accept these miracles having to do with Jesus, including that he was like terribly, horribly killed and then he came back from the dead. He was resurrected. I mean, if that can happen, then all right, well, um, but it's just an issue of well they don't believe in the Buddha, that would be probably why, not because the miracles themselves would seem um, unreasonable relative to Christian miracles, because the Christian miracles are walking on water, turning water into wine, dividing fish, healing the sick. They're all there's some similarities in some of the miracles.
Mm. Okay. Anyway, but in the general, it's not easy for them to accept, right? For
Oh
non-Buddhist.
yeah, of course. If there's no faith in the Buddha's teachings, then the miracles would seem to be, you know, they wouldn't believe the miracles, that's for sure. I think people who even have faith in the Buddhist teachings could find themselves with some doubt around some of these miracles because they're astounding.
Yeah, especially for the Western American people. Of course, for most the Asian Buddhists, they would take for true value. They would take for the facts. There's no doubt about that. But of course, for American people, most of them come from Christianity, so they would not trust much, right? Anyway, so
And a lot of us who left Christianity, part of the reason for leaving it was these unbelievable things, like we have to believe that this is the blood of Christ, and that, or this would be Catholicism, and that we're drinking the blood of Jesus when it's wine. Like, and then I could see some like people going trying to get away from believing something like that, and then hearing, oh, there's things like that here too. Oh gosh, that could be frustrating to some people.
and yeah, most of the tradition talk about miracles. In Buddhism, we talk about miracle too. Right?
Hmm.
You about how I recite the Earth Bodhisattva Sutra. I told you about that story, right? And one man he came back to life. You know that story? I told
Was he in a coma state? I do think you told me that a while ago. It was probably like a year or more ago.
Yeah, yeah, and up, it's more than 10 years ago, and after that he went back to Vietnam. His sister get told me that he just passed away recently. And another miracle is that my dad somehow he prayed for one Bodhisattva, and somehow he got my brother in his dream. He saw one Yin Bodhisattva gave him a son. That's my brother. He's 40 now.
Hmm.
Well, it's this miracles in religious tradition, and people need those kind of stories to encourage them to go with the tradition. And that's why in Christianity they talk more about Jesus miracle too, right? Mm. And
Hmm.
that one time we flew back from I think Jacksonville of Alabama airport, and I was on the airplane. I met two, I think, Korean Christian. They keep talking about Jesus the miracle, and they mentioned about how he walked on the water, and I laugh at them. I try to explain them about Buddha miracle, but at that time they didn't listen. They just mentioned about, they just emphasize on how like Jesus per, performs a miracle by walking the water. Yeah. Uh, anyway, so um yeah, go back here. Yeah, let's go back here and then yeah, ominous. So in your personal practice, have you ever encountered this kind of miracle by yourself?
Hmm. Um, I don't think so. Nothing stands out in my mind of having something that I would say was miraculous. Definitely things that were favorable things, but nothing miraculous.
Mm. Like when you record your Lotus Sutra section, you feel some type of blessing there. You feel that?
I mean, nothing. It. when I'm reciting, the feel of the energy and like the beauty of the sutra touches me, but never anything, no like no miraculous signs.
Mm. I don't talk about the miracles, but I'm talking about if you decide that type of sutra, would you feel any type of lesson spiritually?
Yeah, I mean, I feel my so you know how like you're you're kind of you're in studying the Dharma pretty much all the time, but I, I'll be doing, going about my day, doing other things, thinking about my daughter, thinking about my wife, like how to support them. And so I won't necessarily always have the Dharma forefront in my mind. And then my mind kind of drifts a little bit, the quality of it. Like, what am I moving around? Like, what are my motive forces? And then when I read the sutra, it's like brings it, it brings things back. Very much like the Narita Sutra is like a yardstick with which to measure oneself, and it helps me reharmonize or realign with the Dharma, and the feel of it is very graceful and beautiful. And I get a sense that the practice has something to do with my prosperity. Like I live a pretty good life, um, and that's probably I think most people would look at that and say it's my faith. There's no real way to prove a correlation. But I get the sense of it.
That's that kind of blessing there, right? It's invisible, right? It's that kind of blessing that we could not see, but we could feel, right? When you do Buddha work, when you record that type of Buddha Sutra and share with others, that kind of lesson you could feel that. And of course, let's put this way, there's some, we talk about Buddhist view. Let's say some Buddhist intellectuals, uh, they were Buddhist before, and when they heard you decide in the Lotus Sutra, they love to come and protect you too. That make something your life go smoothly because of their protection and support. Like mm, you run your medical business, and if someone work with you, they support you, right? In one way or another. It's a similar way. Okay, so
Mhm.
today, can we stop here today? Okay.
Mhm.
All right. So thank you. Let's see you.
Thank you, Ty. Let's see you next week.